This is a book on willpower from 1922, and the person who wrote it was extremely successful. His name was Henry Hazlitt. He was an influential economist, a journalist, and author, a very well-respected man who decided to give us an entire book on the way to willpower. I've read the book twice now and it's full of gems, and will help you unlock a new understanding of what willpower is and how to use willpower to take control of your life. And in this video, I'll be sharing 4 major lessons I took from the book. Lesson number 1, willpower is not what you think it is. Lesson 2, the importance of keeping promises to yourself. Lesson 3, are you willing to pay the price? And lesson 4, the ultimate form of willpower. But first, a message from today's sponsor, Opera. These days, we spend a lot of time online and your browser is kind of like your digital car. It gets you around the web to where you want to go, and Opera is kind of like having a sports car. It's a fully loaded, fast, and distraction-free browser with one of the smoothest browsing experiences to date. Opera has actually been around since 1995, and now they've got a completely redesigned look and feel with a ton of built-in features for everything you do online. By far, one of my favorite features is Workspaces. Workspaces allows you to quickly switch between different sessions. I love being able to quickly switch from work mode to chill mode with just one click. It's great if you have several different projects that you need to keep separate but still easily accessible. Opera also has a great feature called Tab Islands. We've all been there, deep in the middle of researching or shopping, and you've got like 20 tabs open that get so small that you don't even know what they are anymore. Tab Islands make it easy to quickly group, collapse, and expand different groups as you need them. I love how it gives you more space and a more focused browsing experience. One of the core features is Opera's native AI, Aria, a web-connected generative AI service that provides real-time information and is easily accessible in the sidebar or in Opera's new command line. I find it's a great way to help summarize information and bounce ideas around while I'm researching. Oh yeah, and did I mention that Opera comes with a free built-in VPN, ad blocker, and more? Basically, everything you might need in your browser, Opera has got you covered. Use my link below to download Opera today. Thank you to Opera for sponsoring today's video. So the way to willpower starts with the scenario you might be familiar with, or maybe not because it's written by a guy from 1922 and semi-unrelatable. But let me read off a bit because it sets up the willpower problem perfectly. You resolve to abolish late nights. 2 nights out a week will be your limit. No night out later than midnight. It doesn't pay. A man loses sleep. He hurts his health. He isn't as fresh as he ought to be for work. He is just frittering his time away and getting nowhere, and not improving himself evenings, and it's expensive. So you resolve to cut it out. With a free conscience, you make your 2 engagements for the coming week. But about Monday noon, Jones drops around at the office. There is a little game of poker towards some night that week when they can get the crowd together. Now, poker is marvelously fascinating. You haven't seen the boys for a long time, and you hate to lie to Jones and tell him all your nights are occupied for such a little reason. And you're ashamed to tell him the truth, that you have resolved to go out only 2 nights a week, come what may might strike Jones as deliciously funny. He might tell the boys, who also have a sense of humor. And there is the possibility that Jones might be offended. So you look straight before you, undecided for a minute or 2. Or you make feeble excuses, not your real ones, which are easily overridden by Jones, and you end by thinking to yourself that you will not count this week, or that you'll make up for it the week after. And your dishonor is complete. That phrase, and your dishonor is complete, has been ringing in my ears anytime I've made a willpower mistake since. And if Jones isn't the most 1922 sounding name I've ever heard in my entire life. This is the willpower problem that we've all experienced. And Hazlitt's goal is to help us overcome it so that we'll actually do what we say we'll do. So that we can stick to our plans, so that we have power over our own behavior. And his idea is that we'll achieve more willpower primarily through enhancing our understanding of what willpower actually is and how willpower really works. Starting with lesson number 1, willpower is not what you think it is. Willpower is really... So before we can acquire willpower, it will be helpful to understand what exactly it is. When you typically think of willpower, what do you think of? I think of force. I think of forcing yourself to do the right thing, either by willing yourself to do something or willing yourself not to do something. Overcoming some sort of temptation with sheer force of mind. Willpower. Now, Henry Hazlitt says that in the popular culture of his time, willpower was thought of this sort of trait that you either do or don't have. A little piece of the mind, an entity, a special type of mental strength that some people can summon up to then do battle with any temptation or obstacle that gets in their way. But he says we're all wrong about this. That's not what willpower is. Instead, Hazlitt says that willpower is really just a form of desire. And the idea behind the book is that if we can understand that willpower is really just a form of desire, then we can learn to master it. Hazlitt then explains exactly what he means by this over like 4 chapters, so let me try to condense it into something quick and easy to understand. According to Hazlitt, our desires determine our actions, and without desire, there would be no action. Now, examples of desires in life would be basic things like our desire to eat food or survive or procreate, but also just to buy some silly thing on Amazon or go for a walk or watch Netflix. Then there are also more abstract, higher order desires, like the desire to be healthier, to be honest, to be kind to people, to be a certain type of person. So essentially, our desires in life are a type of drive, a motivation or an energy toward something. And at any given moment, we might desire a bunch of different things at once. But according to Hazlitt, it's the dominant desire. It's what we want most that determines action or what we actually do. It is what you desire to do, what you want to do, what you will to do. For example, let's say you've committed to eating healthier because you want to feel better and lose weight. You've planned out your meals and even stocked your fridge with nutritious food. But then at the end of a long day, you're craving something quick and tasty, you're craving fast food. Now, in Hazlitt's view, if your dominant desire is to stick with your health goals, you'll prepare and then eat the healthy meal you have planned. But if instead your dominant desire is to eat the fast food, then that's what you'll get. And Hazlitt goes on to say that your desires are constantly battling it out for supremacy. One moment you desire one thing and it dictates your behavior, and then the next moment you desire something else and then that dictates your behavior. So while a desire is dominant, he calls it your will. And so if we go back to willpower, well, we need willpower when our desires come into conflict with one another. For example, we may desire to be healthier, but also desire to eat fast food every day. We may desire to go to bed early, but also desire to keep binging our show late at night. We may desire to save money for retirement, but also desire to go on a lavish vacation. Our desires frequently conflict with each other. They can't always coexist peacefully. Only one can be in charge, and this is when and where we need willpower. And in the book, Hazlitt says that the main conflict of life and of willpower is the conflict between our immediate desires and our delayed desires, aka instant gratification versus delayed gratification. I feel like the struggle between instant gratification and delayed gratification is the struggle of our modern era. But it was still a problem back in 1922, hence the way to willpower. And that struggle goes a little something like this. We need willpower when we have to resist instant gratification in order to achieve delayed gratification. We need willpower when there's something that we desire off in the future that constantly requires us to say no to more immediate desires. Because in life, obtaining a valuable reward off in the future usually requires us to resist the temptations of the immediate desires in the present. So Hazlitt says, willpower then may be defined as the ability to keep a remote desire so vividly in mind that immediate desires which interfere with it are not gratified. So to make that sound a little bit more modern, in other words, willpower is essentially remembering what you want. Remembering your goal and why it was so important to you and how badly you want it, even and especially in the face of temptation. So if we go back and try to realign that with Hazlitt's exact statement, if we translate that word for word, we get willpower may be defined as the ability to keep the desire for a long-term goal so vividly in mind that instant gratifications that conflict with it do not tempt us off our path. In other words, to have willpower, you must remember what you want more. I think this is a really interesting idea. It maps perfectly to everything I've learned over the last few years about behavior change science. And it's actually extremely similar to the self-control method that I teach in my course, which is based on all my research into behavior change science, neuroscience, Buddhism, decision-making and neuroeconomics, mindfulness. But Henry Hazlitt figured this out just by thinking it through. He figured it out just off the top of his head, which is pretty amazing. He actually also wrote a book that I haven't read yet called Thinking as a Science, which I feel like has got to be pretty good. So back to the willpower thing. I guess when we say that someone has strong willpower or a lot of willpower, well, according to Hazlitt, what we're actually saying is a person with strong willpower is someone who has the ability to decide upon a desired course of action, a goal, and then to hang on to that desire over time, to remember why that goal is so important to them, even when competing instant gratification type desires try to tempt them away from it. The nature of life is that we're going to be constantly bombarded with temptations to stray our path, whatever that path may be. But the person with strong willpower rejects these temptations knowing that they are not what they really want. Pretty freaking amazing that Henry Hazlitt just came up with this idea off the top of his head. So as a quick recap, lesson number 1, willpower is not what you think it is. Willpower isn't force, it's desire. It's not about sheer mental strength, but about which desire is strongest at any given moment. Our strongest desires control our actions. What you want most will dictate what you actually do. Desires often conflict. We frequently face choices between immediate gratification and long-term goals. Willpower is needed to prioritize what truly matters. Willpower is remembering what you want most. It's the ability to keep your long-term goals in mind, even when tempted by short-term desires. Strong willpower means staying focused. It's about holding on to your important goals despite constant distractions and temptations. Next lesson, the importance of keeping promises to yourself. So the second major lesson that I took from the book is that willpower requires us to get better at making and keeping promises to ourselves. The trouble with the average man is not that he neglects to make resolutions. The trouble is that he makes far too many. Making resolutions is sometimes his principal daily occupation. He is forever forgetting or breaking them, and that is why he has to make them all over again. Well, I feel personally attacked. Hazlitt says that when we make a resolution, when we decide to change our behavior or our lives in some way, we usually go about it the wrong way. We do it too casually without properly thinking it through before committing to it, which leads to self-control problems because we weren't fully committed to our goal to begin with, resulting in a frustrating cycle of setting and breaking resolutions that undermines our relationship with ourselves and weakens our future attempts at change. For example, someone might casually decide to start running every morning. They might make that commitment to themselves without thinking it through, without considering whether they're willing to go to bed earlier, wake up earlier, deal with potential soreness, or bump other things out of their busy schedule. So someone might make the resolution, but it may fall apart because it was never properly thought through to begin with. In the book, he gives an example of a man who has a bad habit of snoozing his alarm clock and then sleeping in late every single morning before work. He says that every morning this man wakes up in a rush. He has to get dressed really quickly. He has to shave, gobble down his breakfast. He barely gets to talk to his wife. He has to run to this train station every single morning. And as a result, every morning the man curses to himself, "This will never do." Then he spends the rest of the train ride to work daydreaming about breaking this bad habit. He dreams of all the benefits, getting up early, dressing slowly, having a nice breakfast with his wife. It would all be so perfect. And so the man declares, "This thing has been going on long enough. It's preposterous. It has got to stop. Tomorrow I will get up at 7. But then Jones invites him to play poker again and he ends up staying out late. And then he wakes up tired, he snoozes his alarm, and the cycle repeats itself. Obviously, this is extremely relatable. We've all said to ourselves, tomorrow everything changes. The intention was there, kinda, but the commitment wasn't strong enough to override the situation. And according to Hazlitt, this problem persists day after day. You get yourself into a cycle because our resolutions were weak ones to begin with. We didn't think it through well enough. We did not give it enough quality thought before committing to it. We just jumped right in and tried to change without determining whether or not we were truly ready to do the work, leading to a cycle of making and breaking promises to ourselves. I know there's been so many times in my life where I make a commitment to myself in a moment of frustration, but as the day went on, I just completely forgot about it. We make commitments to ourselves in moments of frustration, and then as the day goes on, we just completely forget about the commitment. In Hazlitt's theory, some part of you is keeping score. Some part of you knows that you let yourself down, that you didn't take your own words seriously. But that's not enough to convince you to change when it matters most. Hazlitt goes on to say that we must treat our resolutions to ourselves, our resolves, with the utmost respect if we want to build real willpower. I insist that if you do make a resolve, it should be carried out. There should never be an exception. This point is supreme. To make a resolve and break it is demoralizing. Though not a single other soul on earth should know it, though God himself should not know, you would know it. You would have to confess your failure to yourself. To break a resolve is to undermine your self-respect. To break a resolve is to lose faith in yourself. It shakes your confidence that you can keep any other. He says that if you make a resolve and you do not follow it through, then the next time you attempt to change your behavior, you begin the whole process with self-doubt. In the back of your mind, you're wondering if you'll even stick with it, which means the whole process is starting on really shaky ground. Because you've just undermined your confidence, your self-respect, and ultimately your ability to control yourself and direct your own behavior. And on the flip side, with every resolution you keep to yourself, the more your belief in yourself grows. And the more it grows, the easier it is to keep the next resolution to yourself. And as you build up belief in yourself and your ability to follow through, you're also strengthening your willpower, which if you've seen my discipline video based on that random military document I found, the US military pretty much came to the same conclusion. It was basically the exact same idea. You can't have discipline unless you respect your own word to stick to what you say you'll do. And that is why it is so important to keep promises to yourself. So to recap lesson number 2, casual resolutions often fail. We make resolutions without fully considering the effort required, leading to weak commitments. Think before committing. Strong resolutions come from carefully thinking through what it will take to achieve your goal. Keeping promises builds willpower. Broken promises erode willpower. Next, lesson number 3, are you willing to pay the price? One of the recurring lessons in the book is that achieving something almost always requires us to give up something else. Man is a bundle of desires. He desires this and that and something else again. And the world is so constituted that in nearly every instance, one desire cannot be attained save at the sacrifice of some other. This provoking state of affairs was long ago crystallized in the phrase that you cannot eat your cake and have it too. More broadly, it may be expressed in the phrase that everything we desire has its price. The price of a cake is $1. The price of keeping your dollar is the loss of a cake. Every goal has its price, as he says. And to achieve our goal and to enhance our willpower, we not only have to be aware of this price, but be sure we're willing to pay it before we enter into a battle with temptation. Before you make any formal resolutions whatsoever, make certain that you genuinely desire to carry it out. Let there be no doubt that the end you have in view is so desirable or advantageous that it will outweigh all desires and advantages or all other ends that are likely to have to be foregone or abandoned in order to attain it. In short, be sure you are willing to pay the price. As we discussed earlier, in any given moment, we may desire many different things, and these desires are often incompatible. Therefore, if you want to achieve something, you must be willing to give something else up to pay the price. For example, if you want to get up early, you'll probably need to pay the price of going to bed early, which will also require you to give up staying up late, and potentially may also require you giving up being social or something like that. Now, depending on what your goal is, you may think they're already aware of the sacrifices you'll have to make or the price you'll have to pay. But Hazlitt wants you to go further than that. He wants you to sit with yourself with a pen and a paper and really think through your resolutions before making them. Think through all the advantages, all the disadvantages, every little thing you will have to give up in order to reach your goal. Get them all out and in front of you. Find all the little sacrifices that you will have to make, all the benefits of your current way of being that you will need to give up. It's only once you've done this and looked at all the sacrifices that you're really and honestly ready to make a commitment to change. To use the getting up early example again, say your goal is to get up at 5 a.m. and each morning you set your alarm for 5 a.m. Yet each day you sleep in. Now, the most obvious sacrifices you'd have to make in this scenario are dealing with the pain of feeling tired some mornings and going to bed at an early enough time. But there will be more that you can only find through observing your actions and their consequences. And it's those little benefits that will be your undoing if you don't find them and decide that it's worth it for you to give them up. Ask yourself candidly how far you want to go and how much you are willing to pay. For if you do not ask yourself now before you make your resolutions, you are likely to ask yourself later on. As you see obstacles and disappointments pile up, you are apt to begin wondering whether the game is worth the candle, whether the colors of reality are as gorgeous as those of the painting. And if you decide to give up then, you will have broken your early resolution, with all the undermining of self-confidence and faith in your will which that involves. Therefore, the foundation of strong willpower in Hazlitt's view is having decided firmly upon a course of action before committing to it, and in light of the sacrifice that it will require of you, in light of thinking through all of the prices that you'll have to pay. So to recap, lesson number 3, are you willing to pay the price? Every goal has a cost. Achieving something meaningful always requires giving something else up. Consider the sacrifices. Before committing to a goal, think through what you'll need to give up and decide if it's worth it. Commit only when you're ready. A solid commitment comes from understanding and accepting the price. Willpower is about priorities. Success comes from consistently choosing your long-term goal over immediate temptations. There are like a million more lessons in the book, but the final lesson I'll share is the ultimate form of willpower. According to Hazlitt, having strong willpower, acquiring it as a skill or a trait, comes down to something in particular. A certain type of desire that is so powerful that it outweighs any cravings or impulses to the contrary. And that may be defined as our desire to be a certain sort of character. According to Hazlitt, our dream of becoming the best version of ourselves, of reaching a certain ideal, to Hazlitt, this is the ultimate form of willpower. This is what it takes to truly become a master of ourselves. When popular language says that a man is the slave of his desires, it means that he acts upon the cravings and impulses that from time to time arise. Though in retrospect, he will know that such actions would never be done by the kind of character he wants to be. When popular language says that a man is the master of his own desires, that he holds them in a leash and under his control, it means that this desire to be a certain kind of character is at all times vivid and powerful enough to be acted upon in preference to any other fleeting or recurring desire that may beckon him. So what does this mean? Well, it means that if you want to be the type of person who has strong willpower, you must first have an understanding of and a powerful desire to become a certain type of person. You must know who it is you want to be, what kind of character you want to have, and then build up the desire to be this person and live each day with the knowledge that you're striding toward becoming this person, so that when you are tempted to behave in a way that might require willpower, your desire to become a superior version of yourself overrides any temptation that might pop up and try to get in its way. If we accept the definition of will as the desire to be a certain kind of character, then it can be seen to be a matter of the highest importance just what kind of character you desire to be. And to decide what kind of character you want to be, you have to spend time first thinking about the best way to live. What does it mean to be a great human being? And Hazlitt emphasizes that he does not mean objectively, he means subjectively. What does it mean to you in your heart to be a great human being? A strong character comes from finding and living up to your own ideals, no one else's. The book quotes John Stuart Mill's essay on liberty. It says, "It is not because men's desires are strong that they act ill. It is because their consciences are weak." In other words, part of the willpower problem, or part of the reason that we lack willpower, is due to an underdeveloped view of our own character or potential. Part of the reason we give into craving and the desire for instant gratification is we don't have a strong enough desire or a strong enough vision of our ideal of who we want to be to oppose these feelings. We act on impulse, doing things we vaguely know will make us unhappy because we haven't quite developed a clear enough picture of who the person it is that we want to be and how behaving in that way conflicts with this vision. We have seen that at critical moments when the craving to do a certain thing threatens, like a great tidal wave, to sweep us helpless before it. It is this desire to become a certain sort of character which throws its weight in the scale with the other weaker desires to balance us. It is this desire which stands like a rock to cling to until the torrent has spent its force. It too may be swept away at times, but when it is, we will know that it has not been strong enough. It is a warning that the breakwater has been too low and too weak. We must build it higher and stronger. We must strengthen this desire to become a certain sort of character. So therefore, to have strong willpower, essentially you have to develop a strong desire and craving to become a great human being. According to Hazlitt, this is where we find the mental fortitude to constantly have strong willpower all the time in the face of constant temptation. So to recap, lesson number 4, the ultimate form of willpower. Willpower is tied to your ideal self. The strongest form of willpower comes from your desire to become the best version of yourself. Focus on your character. Willpower is driven by a clear vision of the kind of person you want to be, not just by short-term goals. Strong willpower resists fleeting desires. When you have a powerful vision of your ideal self, it helps you overcome temporary temptations. Develop a vivid image of who you want to be. The clearer and more compelling your vision of your ideal self, the stronger your willpower will be. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope it wasn't too confusing. I will see you in the next one. Click here to learn the formula for discipline that I found in a rare military document. If you like this video, you will love this one.